Good morning, it's July 3rd, and this is to my liberal friends. Well, the Congress is poised to pass the President's big, beautiful bill when the House votes on final passage later this morning. Democrats are stalling as long as possible to try and make political points. They assume the public is glued to C-SPAN and watching the proceedings. In truth, most of us will read about what happened in the news, and the lead story will be the bill passed. Ardent Democrats will shake their heads and claim the country's falling apart. Way back in 2000, George W. Bush posed a critical question about our education system. He asked if our children were learning. Now, I'm not sure we've made the necessary change in our educational system to ensure that our children are learning, but I would hope we are trying and they're learning some lessons that will help them when they grow into adulthood. The question today is, are Democrats learning anything? It's been 8 months since the November elections, an election that saw the Republicans seize control of the Senate, the House, and the White House. You would assume that there were lessons in that election that Democrats would learn, but I'm not sure they're even capable of learning anything at this juncture in time. To most voters, the Democrats of today look eerily similar to the Democrats of 24 and did not like what they saw last year. Now, I've been watching the version of the big, beautiful bill, and there are some problems in the bill, and there are some real positives. I think Republicans are doing some things correctly, but I'm not sure the public will agree, because when you cut programs that people become used to enjoying, they don't like it. In particular, the cuts in Medicaid spending is one that might harm Republicans down the road, and Trump promised not to cut the program. If you read the actual text of the bill, you probably would agree with the type of cuts being made, and you would probably agree that able-bodied adults without young dependent children should be doing some form of work or education to advance themselves. You cannot develop a class of people totally depending on government largesse for their entire lives. Well, Democrats have a hard time thinking outside their own views of Trump and the GOP. They are deeply convinced that Trump is perhaps the worst person who ever walked the earth, and find it difficult to relate to voters whose views are more mixed on him. They are convinced that a breaking point from Trump's actions will inevitably be reached, where voters will wake up and realize Democrats were right all along, with happy political results to follow. This fallacy undergirded Democrats' thinking in the 24 campaign, with rather unhappy results when that breaking point was not reached. Democrats' reliably florid response to Trump's outrage of the day in 25 indicates they're still hoping that breaking point can be reached. And they're puzzled, indeed outraged, that voters have not yet mounted the barricades. Conveniently, the expectation of a breaking point lets Democrats off the hook from changing very much in their own party. What you see in Democrats today is a mantra that says, whatever Republicans propose, I'm against it. That pretty much sums up the Democrats' approach to Donald Trump and his administration. They pretty much refuse to support anything he has proposed. Even on issues like securing a southern border, which he basically accomplished, they're opposed to it, even though the public with 80% support it. You see, the Democrats ranting and raving about ICE and the deportation of illegal immigrants. Even those with lengthy criminal records, Democrats are quick to jump to their support. There's no middle ground on the issues that the public supports and Democrats feel compelled to oppose simply because Trump supports them. Many Democrats have seized on the fact that leading Democratic politicians tend to be quite old, if not ancient. Hello, Joe Biden. And decided what is needed is younger Democrats, changing the guard that'll do the trick. On net, seems like a no-brainer to move younger cohorts up in the party who can better communicate with young voters where Democrats have been losing ground. But what if these young communicators aren't communicating anything to voters would actually help Democrats dig out of the hole they put themselves in? Then the change of the guard will only help the margins. So what does changing the guard mean to them? Take Mamdami, the charismatic millennial who pulled off an upset victory in New York City, in the Democratic primary, and will likely be New York's next mayor. His energy and media savvy are admirable, but his radical cultural politics, only lightly sanded off recently, and his wildly impractical economic plans don't seem likely to change the image of the Democratic Party in a good way. But he nevertheless will be a pole of attraction in the party, just like AOC and the squad were in the aftermath of the 2018 election. And we saw how well that worked out. Democrats' thirst for generational excitement, whatever its content, will make it even harder than it already was for Democrats to reorient the party around an effective majoritarian politics. Do any sane Democrats think the future of party lies with AOC and Mamdami? I don't think that's the solution. Those progressive socialists might win elections in deep blue urban areas, but they will certainly not appeal to voters in suburban and rural districts. But the progressive wing of the party is on the rise, and they're emboldened to speak out. Yesterday, Congressman Pramila Jayapal went on CNN and called ICE agents terrorists. She laments that these federal agents don't have name tags so the protesters can identify them. She complains they're masked, but she has no problem with protesters wearing masks as they terrorize communities and small businesses. The Democrats have to change their tune, but I'm starting to believe they're unable because they're increasingly being dominated by the far left. Tomorrow, I'll take a look at the midterm election and see how that's going to play out for them. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.